Peace everyone, Unmask Art here, and welcome to a live critique video. Apologize for being a few minutes late here, having some technical difficulties as you can imagine. That's always the case. Anyways, welcome everyone. I see a number of you in chat: Marcy, Cherry, Chandri, Diane, Teresa, Susan, who else? Who else do I see there? Catherine, I see you as well. And I think, oh, Lisa, good to see all of you lovely people in chat. So today I am going to be, of course, going through a number of your projects that you guys have submitted for the live critique. And let's just get right into it because I have a ton of them that I need to get through. So the first up is Patricia. She has this very adorable pastel portrait. And of course, you want to know where you can improve. Well, based on what I'm seeing from the photo, it kind of looks almost like maybe a school photo or a senior picture. It looks like something that was, the reference photo was probably shot in a studio setting. And I think that's why the lighting is very, very even on the attempt to replicate the photo. And the issue with that is that generally with those studio setups, the photographer sets up the lights in a way to kind of diminish the shadows on the face. And usually those types of photos don't translate very well into artwork because you lack the drama of the shadows. And in this case, it's actually quite difficult to tell exactly which direction the light source is coming from in your artwork because the skin has kind of this flatness to it and there's not a lot of dimension going on there. So one of the ways that you might improve this is to kind of think about where the light source is most dominant. And for instance, if we take this peach color, this peach tan color of the skin that you have, and we just darken it, I don't know, just darken it a tiny bit, maybe add a little bit of red to it, and then we darken up the face just a little bit where the light source might not be hitting as much. You can start to see how this adds a bit more dimension. Also, the shadow underneath the neck, you can go a little bit darker underneath the neck, and that's going to bring the chin forward and make it look a bit more three-dimensional. See, I only added a very, very subtle change to the face and the shadows, and you can see that it makes it much more three-dimensional. And I barely changed anything at all, right? So here's the before, here's the after. So that's one thing definitely to think about in the project. And then also with the hair, you kind of have the same issue. So if we take the color of the hair that you have here and maybe just go a little bit darker, and then again, we're just going to add a little bit of a shadow in the back because underneath the hair, you know, there's not going to be any light really showing on that part of the hair. So you can go really dark. And what this is going to do is it's going to push the hair back and bring the hair that's in front forward, giving you a nice sense of depth. It also helps bring out the face as well. So back here we can go a little bit darker in the hair, maybe a few of these spots where the light isn't quite hitting, we can go a little bit darker in some of these areas. And one of the common things with highlights that I often discuss in my tutorials is that highlights, in order to make highlights pop out and appear brighter, oftentimes people reach for white and they try to get their highlights closer to the color white, thinking that if the highlight is closer to white, it's going to be brighter and therefore shinier. But in reality, the best way to make your highlights appear brighter and shinier is actually to take the colors surrounding them and darken them. And so here with the hair, I imagine she has quite shiny hair. And if we just add a little bit of shadow to her hair, you can start to see how much shinier? Yeah, how much more shiny, there you go, it appears. So here's with just a subtle hint of deepening the shadows in this image, and you can start to see how much it brings out the face and how much it increases the three-dimensional quality of the artwork. And with the shadows and the hair, we didn't go very dark. You can go much darker than this. And it actually makes the hair look shinier. It makes those highlights stand out a lot more. Oh, hey there, Sneaks and Mache. Good to see you. Very welcome, Amy, for doing the live critique. Absolutely. I have your picture here somewhere. It's like 5th in line or something. But yeah, so you can see just how much a little bit of contrast to the image really makes it stand out better. All right, I'm going to move on, but fantastic job, Patricia. The next one is pastel painting from Gina, and this one's really, really colorful, super colorful, and I like the contrast, I like the texture and the composition. This one is really, really good. I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for as far as a critique here, because it does feel a bit more stylized. I think one of the ways that you can improve this is to pinpoint where the focal point of the viewer should be. So think of when you're designing your compositions, think about where you want the eye of the viewer to focus on. And in this project, I think it makes most sense for the viewer to be focused more heavily on, try to pick a color that's going to stand out here. I feel like the viewer should be looking like right here in the center. You have a lot of contrast with the tree branches and everything like that. So I think sharpening those lines, which I know with pastels is rather difficult, but if you sharpen the edges of these trees just a little bit, I think it brings not just the visual contrast in value, but also in detail. So the tree automatically becomes more in focus when the edges of that part of the tree become more distinct in comparison to the rest of the background. Like for instance here, the base of the tree, maybe if we just sharpen this edge of the tree a bit more over here, maybe sharpen the edge a little bit, and you can start to see how just that sharpening of the edge makes that tree become more in focus for the viewer. The other form of contrast that I want to bring up is textural contrast. So you have contrast that's based on the value of the colors, and in this case you have these really bright colors and then this really dark tree, and that's the value contrast because the tree is much darker than what's behind it. That makes it stand out more. But you also have texture. If something is blurry out of focus, the things that are in focus, even if they're the same value, are going to have this textural contrast. You're going to focus more on what's in focus even if the values are very close. In the case of this, you have a lot of texture up in the leaves of the tree, and that helps bring the viewer's eyes up into the tree. But then you also have a lot of this texture down here in the grass, and I think if you were to take and blend this out, and I'll just artificially blend this out. If I just blend out this grass, that's the wrong layer. If I blend out this grass and I soften that texture to where it becomes more blurry, you'll notice that it starts to bring your attention away from the bottom of the page and really like laser points your eyes right into the center where that tree is. So I think that's where you can improve. You can even do a little bit of blurring around the edges, giving it kind of like a blurred vignette type of feel. And that brings your eyes right towards the center. So good to see me live. Well, I'm actually live 4 times a week now over on my website, Andrea. Yes, I do. I'll talk more about that later, but yes, I live stream 4 times a week. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But anyways, that's where I think you can improve on that project. And Gina has another one. And this is a really, really adorable bird. I'm not sure what kind of bird it is. It looks somewhat tropical. Sitting on a branch. And this one is already really, really well done. There's just two things I think that you can improve on here. The first thing is whatever this is, it looks sort of like a strawberry. I don't think it's a strawberry because strawberries don't grow on trees, but it's probably some kind of flower or fruit that grows on this tree that this bird is sitting in. But they don't show up anywhere else, right? This kind of weird shape. It's still blurry, it's good because it doesn't distract you too much from the bird, but I don't think it's adding anything to the picture. And I think the picture looks much better if we just get rid of it. If we just get rid of that, let me try to make it look a little bit more natural here. So if we just get rid of that little weird strawberry looking goofiness, I think overall it makes the background fade away and the birds stick out even more. And then also the second thing I think you can improve on here is the branch. The branch has a really nice texture and actually looks quite realistic, but I think what you're missing is a bit of that cylindrical three-dimensional quality of the tree branch. And so if we just darken the bottom third of this branch just a little bit, or maybe not that much, so just like this, just darken that bottom third, you can see how much more three-dimensional it is, and you can even consider doing a small extra highlight on the top, maybe not that bright, so maybe just a touch, just a touch of highlight on the top of the branch, and you can start to see that branch has a much more three-dimensional quality, which you want to have in your more realistic artwork. Let's see. Did I miss anything in chat? If I happen to miss anything in chat, just tag me in it. It'd be a lot easier for me to see. All right, Gina, fantastic job on those projects. They look really good. All right, next up is Heidi, and she submitted 2 projects, and 2 really fantastic projects, I might add. The first one is this really cool, like fantasy, like, I don't know, witch or goddess or queen or something. It's really unique picture here. Not sure what the context is, but regardless, it's really cool. And there's a few things that you can improve on to really make this project just, blow people's minds even more than what it already does. So this is a pastel project. So she did this with pastels. And the first thing I want to compliment you on is the background. So the background in the reference photo is actually not really good. I think if I had been the person that took this photo and edited this photo before posting it on the internet, I would have darkened the background a little bit and perhaps even blurred it a bit more. And I really like that you decided to just throw the background out and do a more bokeh background. I think that it adds a lot to the picture by bringing the main subject forward, by just eliminating it completely. I think what you may have missed out on, though, is the opportunity to bring in a richness of a unique color. One of the colors that I see in the original photo is a hint of lavender. I actually feel like the background has this lavender color. You see this lavender color here? So I just pulled this right out of the reference photo, it's gray, but it has that lavender tone to it. You can see a little bit more lavender here. It leans a bit towards the blue side, but your photo focuses, or your replication, it really focuses heavily on the teals and blues. And so you kind of missed out on the opportunity for these nice gray lavender colors. And I think the background would have benefited from having a little bit of that lavender tone to it. So if I just maybe bring in a little bit of lavender and perhaps just a hint of this lavender also brightens the sky up a little bit, so it's a bit flat for it to be just an out of focus background, because the values don't change from the top to the bottom. If the values faded from like a light color to a dark color, you kind of create this subtle sensation of a light source, which I think you could have done in your background. So that's one teeny tiny nitpicky thing I can pick out of in the background. Now for the main subject, you did a really, really great job as capturing the essence of the picture. The textures and the details are really, really, really close to what the actual reference photo shows. And again, you're sort of missing that lavender color, because if you look at her skin, particularly on her face, one of the things that you see in the reference photo is that you can see a nice bright highlight on the forehead, and right here on the cheeks, the tops of the cheeks, you kind of have that really bright pop of a highlight. And your face doesn't have that, and the reason your face doesn't have that is because the mid-tone color of the face that you've created is too bright. So it's just too bright for that highlight to show up. So if I take a little bit of the lavender color that I used in the background and I just kind of cover her face a little bit, so I'm going to just kind of go right over top of her skin here, and I'm going to darken all of the gray part of her skin. So I'm going to just darken all the gray part of her skin. Right? And even go with some of the darker lavender color here, and for like beside her nose, kind of just get these cheeks popped up a tiny bit, bottom of her chin a little bit, and maybe beside her forehead, like her temple area. That makes her forehead more rounded. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a color from here. This might be, yeah. So this is kind of the highlight color. I'm just going to use white. Just going to use white and tone it down a little bit. And now I'm just going to sprinkle in subtle touches of highlights where the brightest parts of her skin are. So right here on her cheeks, upper part of her cheeks, just a little touch of brightness. And then of course the bridge of her nose. So there. See the difference in the face? It really adds that shiny quality that the reference photo has. Very subtle changes, super subtle changes, as you can see, but those small changes really make a difference to the way the skin appears and the dimensions of the skin. So those are some ways that I think you can improve that. All right, next one for Heidi. This one is super cool. I wish I kind of would have come across this reference photo before you and did it myself. This one's super cool. I love the surrealistic balloons, but them being planets. It's really cool concept, and I love the way that you attempted to replicate the reference photo. It's a tricky project for sure, and I think you did a really good job on it. The things that you can improve, which are, it's not easy to improve these things, because the thing that you need to improve on really is the creation of light, or the the illusion of light coming from the planets slash balloons here. And so what you may have sort of missed on the reference photo, I'm just going to take black. I'm just going to take some black here, and I'm going to show you what just a hint of extra contrast in the right spots is going to do to your artwork. So if I darken this side where the light doesn't hit, I'm just darkening it a little bit with some black. You can already tell, like, look at the way it kind of focuses that light source. If you focus the light source coming from the balloons, it intensifies. And it's weird that, I'm just kind of putting a little shadow over here in the corner, but it intensifies the light coming from the balloons. It reinforces that idea that these balloons are glowing. And the same is true for over here. Just going to kind of darken this a bit, just in that area, and you can see it pinpoints the light source. This is just a bit too bright everywhere, and here it kind of brings that light, makes it more focused right here on the girl. And also, since it darkens those corners, it also brings the viewer's eyes in towards the center. Now, the other part of the lighting that you want to try to get a little bit better at is, of course, the light and the way it interacts with the subject. If we pull the color of your arm here, what we're going to see is that it's very gray. This is the color of your skin right here. It's very gray. And let's look at the suitcase. So this is the dark side of the suitcase. It's also brownish gray. So these very, very like muted tones. They lack a lot of interest in color. Now let's compare this to the colors that we're going to get from her arm over here, which is much more purple. Look at that purple. So this is your arm, and this is the arm of the reference photo. So you're pretty far away from that color. So let's go ahead and we're going to take this color purple here, and we're just going to use this color purple over top of your drawing here. So we're just going to add a little bit of purple to the shadows on the side of her head that doesn't show, that isn't being hit by the light. We're going to add some of this purple to her arm here, again where the light source isn't hitting, and then we're going to just add this purple right over top of the suitcase, again where the light is not hitting. A little bit on her leg, and then also in the drop shadow down here, we're just going to add a little bit of purple. So that purple makes the shadows more colorful. You kind of eliminated the sense of color in the shadows, and purple nonetheless. How dare you submit a project where you forgot to add purple? That's blasphemy. And also the purple up here. See this beautiful purple? Oh, you're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart. How can you miss that beautiful purple? So much lovely purple. Down here, look at all that purple. There's so much purple. Everybody misses purple. How do you miss it? Purple is my favorite color. All right. So those are the things that you can that can really help reinforce that light. Always, there's purple in everything. Always use purple. All right? It's always about the purple. Indeed, Diane. Always, 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 always. Don't ever forget purple. But otherwise, it's really, really great. Of course, the last thing I want to touch on is the contrast. Look at the color of this leg here. It's so dark. So dark. So dark. Look at that. Look at these shadows. I darken these shadows a little bit. Look at the intensity that it creates. Look at the intensity that the heightened contrast creates in the image. That light source really starts to show up. That light source is much more believable with the intensity of that contrast. And purple. Don't forget purple. All right, that's it. Fantastic job, Heidi. I really enjoyed that one. All right, next up is Rebecca. She did a pastel portrait, I imagine of her parents, possibly her grandparents. I'm just assuming that. And I can't tell if she freehand drew the reference. If so, she did a pretty good job at the accuracy of the drawing. Again, some of the things that you can improve on. I noticed one thing that I noticed right off the bat was that you changed the brightness of the background, which I think is a good artistic choice, but it almost appears as though you added a color to the background. I kind of see like this kind of faded blue. I see this faded blue, green. It's like a tan and a green or a blue or something like that. It's really hard to discern exactly what color that is that's added there. But one of the things with the background is, like I said, it looks like you added it after you did the portrait itself. And I don't ever recommend trying to add a background after you've done the main subject, because you usually get this halo effect that I kind of see around the edges, where it's like there's this weird gap between the subject and the background. The other thing that you did with the background that is a big thing you want to avoid pretty much at all costs is you created a directionality with the application of the color that you did apply. If you can see it, if you can see those lines, what they kind of do is they kind of have this direction to it. They kind of all have this weird slanted direction quality to it, which it doesn't work. I don't know how else to describe it. Just try not to add a slanted direction. It creates a weird action. You could almost interpret it as rain. In this case, the colors don't work for rain. The setting doesn't work for rain. Nothing suggests that they're standing in the rain. And that kind of directionality really only comes from a bunch of rain droplets not being in focus and falling in the background. So you want to try to avoid those directional lines in your background. If you do have directional lines in your background, make sure that they're either vertical or horizontal. Personally, I recommend horizontal. Otherwise, do little circles so that it's not a distraction, because the background is a distraction in this case. The other thing that I want to just briefly touch on, because it's kind of been an overall theme throughout these projects that I've gone over, and that's of course contrast. For all of my art club members that are in the chat, tell everybody what the most important quality is in your artwork. And in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll take look at that purple. That's so purple. That is so purple. Granted, I don't think that the color scheme of the reference photo is very appealing. It looks more like a memoriam photo as opposed to like a family portrait. And I like that you leaned more towards the natural, bright, warmer colors. If I were to take this photo and alter it, this photo here, the actual original reference photo, exactly, values is the most important quality. So I'd take the temperature way up. You see way pulling that image towards the yellow, you can see how much more warmth you get in the skin. Maybe a little bit of magenta, but just the warmthness that you get pulling out the purples, making them a bit more red, and the yellows here are a bit intense, but I'm not going to fiddle with that. But that's one thing that I like that you did, is that you went more towards the warm colors on the skin. But the problem is this shadow here needs to be much darker. This shadow really makes up the face. It makes up the structure of the face. Now that's way too intense. Let me turn down them. Let's go more purpley. So this shadow here, you have this split for the chin, which doesn't really exist in the reference. This shadow, you have a deep shadow right here by the eye, real deep shadow by the nose, a little bit here, and then underneath the chin, right here. So you can see that deeper shadow. Don't be afraid of the values. Very, very important. Now your eyes, I imagine you know what color the eyes of your parents or grandparents are. You've really hit home that your parents have blue eyes. And if I'm not mistaken, those are the bluest eyes I've ever seen. And the reality of colors in eyes is that they're very subtle. In fact, I'm not even going to change the color. I'm just going to gray them out. I'm just going to turn them gray with the shadow color that I used on the skin there. Just going to add some gray. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to get real intense here. I'm going to darken the pupil with a bit of black. On both of them. The pupil on this one is misplaced, by the way. It makes it look like she's staring at you. The other eye is not. And then I'm going to just take a splash of white to make the eyes glow. So a hint of white. So I've toned down the blue so that the blue is not so intense. I darkened the pupil, and then I just added a tiny little highlight from the light source. And so the eyes overall are darker, which makes the contrast more intense. The values are darker, and that brings the viewer's attention more to their eyes. The other thing with your mom or grandma here, again, the shadows. So I'm just going to pull this same shadow color. And you'll notice that underneath her chin, her neck is shaded, and then also the side of her cheek. Now the photo is, her skin is lit really, really brightly in the photo, and it makes it kind of hard to see. But if you think of her head, and you know, I'm not saying she has a square head, but if you think of it like a square, or a cube, I mean, this side should not be the same value as this side. So if you think of her face being just a flat plane of a cube, this side should be darker. And you can see that subtly in the reference photo. And I can see that you did add it a little bit, but you didn't make it as obvious as you need to. And what happens when you don't make it as obvious as you need to, it makes her face look much, much wider, which actually proportionally it is too wide. Let me see if I can maybe fix that a little bit. It's more or less this part that you have is a bit too far over, so it's kind of here. it kind of needs to slide over a little bit. I'm just kind of making this up. So anyways, yeah. So it kind of pulled way too far over there. And then again, the shadow underneath her chin and her neck. So those are the things that you need, that you can improve on there. All right, next project. This one is Amy. So she did an adorable little lion cub. All right, just checking chat. We making good time? Yeah, we're making good time. Oh goodness, I have so many more to do. All right, this one's Amy's. Yes, Amy. So I like the intensity of color that you chose. You went a bit brighter towards the orange, but again, you want to make sure that you balance out that intense color saturation with some more neutral tones. Just like highlights. So think of it kind of like highlights when you want to make highlights, like I said earlier, when you want to make highlights brighter, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to add more white to the highlights, right? Instead, darkening the surrounding colors will help that highlight pop out much more thoroughly. Well, in the case of saturation, it's very, very much the same. If you want things to be like really bright and colorful in comparison to, say, the more earth tone natural colors that you have in the reference photo here, you want to surround the intense colors with the more neutral colors. So if we pull the neutral brown, you can see how neutral brown this color is coming from the shadow and also darker. If we surround some of those bright intense colors with the more neutral colors, so I'm going to tone down that orange here and turn it just more of a grayish brown. Same thing kind of here. Just gonna tone down your fur a little bit, kind of change the saturation extreme that you have here on the face, underneath the eyes. I'm going to tone down that orange and go just more neutral, more gray. Top of the head, I'm going to go a little bit neutral. Over here, maybe the sides of the face a bit, and inside the ears are really, really vibrant here. You got like these super bright oranges. And then over here, I'm gonna do it pretty much over all the fur here. I'm gonna desaturate all this fur that's on the back because, again, you stretched out the body here because it's cut off on the reference photo, which it's tough to do because you alter the anatomy when you just stretch it. Kind of looks like this lion cub is related to cat dog or something, and has like that really long body. So you gotta be careful when you just arbitrarily stretch things out because it can make things weird. It can get weird quick. So careful with the stretching. Instead, I think just fading it away would have maybe been a better choice. So if I take the paper color and instead of arbitrarily going to the edge of the paper is also not generally something I would recommend. So I'm going to just kind of fade the lion cub out. Into the paper. So I'm just gonna his body goes on, but we don't see it. I think that would have been a slightly better option, and you wouldn't go to the edge of the paper either. Personally, the composition of the reference photo, I'm not a huge fan of because it does make that part of the drawing very awkward. That slice of the body where you just cut off half of the body, and it's not really a portrait. It's kind of a portrait, but you have a lot of the background and the ground also in the photo. If you just look at the reference photo and you put your thumb over the lion cub to cover it up, I'd say the lion cub barely makes up 1/4 of the entire composition, which as a main focal point, I don't think that's a very good compositional choice. Especially when there's nothing going on in 3/4 of the image. You know, a little couple sticks and dirt, not super interesting to the viewer. But anyways, the other thing, so as you can see, just toning down the saturation in a few areas actually make the lion cub brighter in like the eyebrow area, the forehead, and the ears. Those colors pop out quite a bit more. The other thing is the eyes. So you made, I don't know if this was an artistic choice to make the eyes more red, but your eyes are really, really red, which I'm not sure works too well with the color scheme of the fur. I think in order to make the eyes stand out a bit more, I think maybe you need to go darker with the values in the eyes. So for instance, if I just I'll just stick with the red eyes since you have red eyes. I'll zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to darken the bottom part of the eye and the top part of the eye. So I'm going to just darken this part. And I'm going to darken this part over here, the bottom part. And a little bit of the top. And I'm just going to let that red show up kind of right here. Now if we zoom back out, you can see that the eyes get much more piercing, they get more intense, and they're still red, so I didn't change the color of them, but I just made them more spherical looking. And they look shinier because not because I brightened the highlights, but because I actually darkened the shadows. Anyways, you did a fantastic job on this project. I'm going to move on. All right, just making sure I didn't have any questions. Next up is Garima, and this may or may not be a Hindu god. If it's a guy, then it's Krishna, but I'm not. Krishna is usually represented as being blue. But it's a really cool design. I really like the design here. The head, I don't know what that's called, but the headpiece is super detailed and really, really cool. And I like the attention to detail that you paid to this hat. I just kind of wish that same attention of detail and contrast applied to the rest of the image. I'm guessing you started with this and then you kind of got tired and you were like, nah, I'm done. Because this looks like it took 3 hours and then the rest of the image looks like it took 3 hours. And I think if you spent 3 hours on this, you should have spent 3 hours on this and probably 3 hours on the rest of the body. A few things that I think you can improve on here. The first thing is this elbow. Elbows aren't that pointy. So just a small anatomy change. I just kind of, I'm just going to flatten that elbow just a smidgen. There we go. Just round that elbow off a little bit before you put somebody's eye out with it. The other thing is, again, a little bit of anatomy. You're just missing a little bit of anatomy. So this neck is real thick. There's not much of a neck there in actuality. And the neck has the muscles that come down to the clavicles here. So there's a little bit of a clavicle right there. And then of course you have the pectoral muscles that split the chest in half and kind of come down like this. And then you have the abdomen muscles that turn, and then I don't know what happened to the belly button, but the belly button is gone. Actually, I think it's possible that Hindu gods don't have belly buttons because they weren't born. Although, technically, yeah, they were. Yeah, Krishna was born. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't have belly buttons. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I studied Hindu theology, but yeah. Anyways, I'm 60% sure there needs to be a belly button. But you have abdomen muscles, you have ribs that come in here, and there should be a little bit of muscle structure. You don't have to make them look ripped or anything, but some subtle muscle structure will go a long way. And then the Lotus Flower here, I think the Lotus Flower should be a bit bigger. So if you made the Lotus Flower just a bit bigger, why isn't, oh, that's the wrong layer. I think that that would help. So let's go like that. So I'll just make the Lotus Flower a bit bigger. And if we just intensify the contrast. Is it dodge or burn? I can never remember if it's dodge. Okay, it's burn. There. Just stand out a little bit more. I like that. I wouldn't change too much about this. I like the style of it. And you could probably go a tiny bit darker in the hair also. A little bit darker in the hair. But good job. I like that one. All right. Next up, Diane. All right. Let's see. How can you do a pastel tutorial using Canson or something else other than pastel matte just to see how to manage? Yeah, pastel matte. I've heard many complaints from people. I think like Central South America, they have trouble getting pastel matte. India, not so much India anymore, but at the beginning, like a couple years ago, several of my students in India had trouble getting pastel matte, and I still hear people in Central and South America saying that they can't find pastel matte as well. I don't know if I'll ever do a tutorial using something other than pastel matte. The truth is, and I don't want to get too deep into it since it takes me away from the critiques here, is that use whatever paper you can, whatever's available to you. If you still enjoy pastels, then just keep doing that. You'll never get to the you'll never get the true sense of what pastels are capable of until you get pastel matte or find some way to get access to it. But yeah, I don't think I'll do a tutorial using other paper because I buy my paper in bulk, and it really doesn't change the tutorial at the end of the day if I switch papers. The only thing that changes is the quality of work that I'm able to produce, if that makes sense. All right, Diane, so this portrait here, we're going to see quite a bit of this portrait here, and because of the reason for that is because I have a lot of students, if I can speak, oh my goodness, a lot of students that are in the Unmask Art Club. And if you're not a member of the Unmask Art Club, let me just briefly describe what it is. I have a link for it in the description, by the way, so you can just click on that link and check it out. But I live stream 4 times a week, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we do pastel projects on Monday and Tuesday, colored pencil projects on Wednesday and Thursday. And this is one of the most recent colored pencil projects that the art club and myself completed, and so several of the club members submitted this for their critique, and so we'll see 5 or 6 of these portraits throughout the rest of this live stream. Really, I should probably just do them all at the same time, but I'll do one at a time. They all turned out really, really good, because the portrait was not an easy subject. But yeah, that's the art club, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in chat. There's plenty of club members in the chat, and they'll be able to answer your questions along with myself if I'm not distracted. Anyways, so Diane, fantastic job on the portrait here. I like that you took the initiative to tape off the border and fill in the whole background. And I know that when I was doing my portrait, I went for more of the scribbly background for the sake of just an artistic choice to kind of make it look like a kid scribbled the portrait, and then as they progress towards the center, they get better and better. You seem to still went with kind of a scribbly around the edge, and then kind of focused up a little bit, just like I did. Although over here you kind of lose it just a tad. I have to be real nitpicky because you did such a good job on the portrait. So don't take it personally. You're just gonna have to listen. So here in this area, you have the smoother black as you get closer to the portrait, and then over here, this is the hair. You have more of the scribbly stuff right up next to it. So you probably should have continued with that same style all the way down like you did on this side, because it kind of stops over here a little bit too abruptly. But that's for the background. I'm going to jump to the sweater. You did a good job on the sweater. For this part of the sweater, remember these little circles here, they're puffy. So you need just a bit of a softer edge for the actual, let me go a little bit darker, a little bit softer edge on the bottom so that they look more spherical and they look a bit more puffy, right? So if they're just a bit darker on the bottom, they don't look, it doesn't look like alligator skin or lizard skin. Instead, they look a bit puffier, right? Because your black lines show up really, really well, and then the color on the surface is a bit too flat, so it doesn't have that look. So here's the small change. You can see that it softens those little puffy yarn circles. I don't know what to call that texture, but it makes it a little bit softer. And the same is true with the texture in the sweater. So the texture in the sweater, the way that you have it, it looks hard. So it looks more like a scratched surface as opposed to a soft knitted sweater. And I think what may help with that is by softening the edges of, this is the wrong layer. I was like, why isn't it having? So if we soften this with blur, we're just going to soften it with a blur. You see how much softer the sweater looks now that all of those texture lines are less intense? Just going to blur everything. Now the sweater looks quite a bit softer. And here's before, here's after. So that softness, that blurriness is what gives the sweater its softness. So that's the thing with the sweater. I really like the hair, but again, I think maybe even the hair could be smoothed out just a touch. So I'm just going to blur it just to give it that sensation of softness. So here's before, after, before, after. It's a softness thing. And for the face, you did really, really good with the face, especially the teeth. I think you did really good with the teeth and the lips. The only thing that I would change with the face is when you see this area right here, the top part of the bridge of the nose. Bring that color in just a little bit. See that change? So here's without, here's with. You see how that darker color just curves in a little bit more on the bridge of the nose, even on this side maybe a bit. The change is very small. See that right there on the nose? The top part of where the nose meets here on the girl, it's too wide. And that's just because that dark color needs to come in just ever so slightly. One more time. There you go. All right, moving on. Fantastic job on the portrait, by the way. This was the other one, the other project that you submitted, Diane. And I love this project. In fact, I like yours much more than mine. Yours came out really, really good. The colors that you used, I'm jealous because I think they're better than what I used in mine. The hair, I love the way that you went from the black hair down to the yellow hair. It's awesome. I love it. I love it. The use of purple, of course, I love that as well. And you went purple and gold. That's perfect. That's royalty right there. And the way that you used the purple in the skin also. So you kind of you harmonized your colors a lot throughout the entire picture with the use of purple, and then you have this splash of green that just stands out so well among the purple and yellow. So you did a fantastic job on this. I'm not gonna get too particular on the face. There's some anatomy struggles that I think could be addressed there, but don't get hung up on it. It still looks very cute, and I think it fits the style really well. And then also the feet are a little awkward, but again, don't even worry about it. I like that you added this little bug here. That's a nice little sprinkle of detail in there that you know, that when the viewer looks at this, they're like, oh wow, that's really cute, that's really adorable and pretty, and then they see the little ladybug or whatever right here on the branch, and like, oh, look at that cute little bug. It's just one of those little details that you add that makes it something special. For these flowers down here, kind of unfortunate that they're so close to the edge of the paper. I almost don't even think that you need those flowers there. I think it actually might look better without them. Let's just see. I'm just going to erase these flowers. I know you probably spent a ton of time on them, but I kind of like it without the flowers because since they're so big, they do kind of like pull your eye down to the corner a little bit. Maybe if you had, so instead of these flowers, what if we copied this flower? What if we copied this flower? Let's mirror it. Maybe go like this. Maybe we went like this. Maybe we brought another flower down here. Let's go like that. So maybe if we had this flower down here, something like that, possibly. Maybe we can turn that right back up. There we go. Maybe something like that. I feel like that's a little bit more balanced. It's a very subtle compositional critique. The other thing is purple. I love the purple that you have. Love this deep dark purple. Oh, but you missed the opportunity to go. Yeah, it looks like you went blue in the hair. Looks like you went blue in the hair. Oh, that's too much. Let's tone that down. Go purple in the hair. Come on now. Go purple. No, don't go blue. Go purple. There we go. Give that subtle purple tone into the hair, not the blue. Get that blue out of here. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that project a lot. It was a lot of fun to do too. You did a fantastic job on it. I like it better than mine, personally. And now, for whatever reason, I don't know what, I have no idea, Diane, why you wanted to do this with colored pencils, but I have to admire your tenacity to attempt the Northern Light project with colored pencils. That's admirable at the very least. And you did a really good job at creating that effect. It's not easy making those green northern lights look like they're glowing, and somehow you actually managed to do it really, really well. This has got to be one of the best skies and colored pencils that I've seen in a while. Those small thing, only a couple small things. You have a little bit of a halo effect over here. A little bit of a halo effect on the edge of the mountain. Not sure why. But yeah, maybe try to get rid of that halo glowing edge of the mountain. And then the water. I can't remember, but I can't remember the reference photo exactly. But you have these directional lines, right? You see them. I know you see them. You have these directional lines. It kind of changes right here, and then these ones are all like this. And it doesn't match the perspective. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your drawing. I'm going to blur. I'm going to change the direction horizontally. Maybe not that intense, goodness gracious. Let's just change it. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to change it like that. And let's just let's get rid of that slanted directionality you have in the water and make it horizontal instead. Right? So that's more of a horizontal line. And I think that works better for the water instead of that kind of slanted directionality that you have there. And then on top of that, you can use some of the lighter colors, maybe around the edge. That color's too intense. So some of the lighter colors, kind of going more horizontal here to give it some highlight. Something like that. So the directionality of the water, I think, is pretty much the only thing you can improve on. But great projects, Diane. Next up is Catherine. She did my wolf pastel tutorial. That's on YouTube. Anybody can watch that, get the line art and everything. Kind of gave up by the time you hit the water. I bet you filled up that whole paper with colored pencils. It's craziness. I wouldn't. If somebody paid me, I wouldn't do that project with colored pencils. So, yeah, I feel you. And as Catherine mentioned when she posted this, she wished that she had went darker on the colors of the wolf before she got in there with pencils and whatnot. And I think you're absolutely right. I think as far as like the accuracy and everything that you have on the wolf, it's really just the fact that you needed to go darker. So some of these darker grays and browns and all of that, if we literally just darken up the wolf, we'll just see how much nicer it looks. So some of these dark browns, pretty much all over the woof, right? And then I can't remember if the whiskers were black or white, but if we put in black whiskers, this is gonna be like impossible to do with a mouse, but I'm gonna try. Black whiskers. Yeah, I think they were black. Gosh, that looks terrible. Maybe a little. Okay, why isn't that working? Oh, there it is. Fade them a little bit. There. And then also the hairs, the actual hairs, I remember putting in a lot of individual hairs. Not a terrible amount, not something that takes you a really long time, but I remember addressing this in the tutorial. But really the big thing is the value of the woof, right? Because one thing that shows up is the highlight from the background. Wait, is this darkening or lighting? Oh, there we go. So the highlight coming from the background, that nice rim light, makes the woof show up. And then also, I don't know if I have a particle brush. Let me see. This might be close. Wait, what is going on? Didn't I just pick a particle brush? So I know that I had snow on the woof, and that extra bit of texture is going to make your woof look really cool. Oh, hey there, Catherine. Yeah, I remember you said hi earlier. But yeah, the values of the actual woof, going darker, these shapes that you have in there are really close to the value that you want. But again, the snow texture can really make the atmosphere a lot better for you. A little bit brighter in the eye, a little bit darker on this side maybe, something like that. But yeah, you did a good job on the woof. You can probably, the best thing about pastels is that you can kind of keep working on them. So there's adjustments there that you might still be able to make. If you didn't untape it, if you untaped it, then I wouldn't risk it. I would just keep it as is, but you did a really good job. Thank you for the submission. Up next is Cherry. She submitted 3 projects. So the first project is this landscape that I believe is pastels. I'd be quite surprised to find out if it was anything other than pastels. But one thing that she wasn't totally happy with was the trees in the background. And I can understand why, because they kind of look like cushions almost, or like pillows. And that can actually be solved relatively easily by just getting rid of the distinction that you have between each individual tree. So if I just mush those colors together a bit more so that it's not so, they almost look like green rocks stacked up on top of each other, right? And it's because you have the distinction between each tree. Yeah, it looks like you used like black. Oh, hey there, Sherry. Yeah, if the tape is still on, Catherine, go ahead and start darkening some of those. Just go revisit the tutorial and kind of look at the colors that I'm using and just go darker with your layer. And then you can add more pencils on top, so don't worry about that. If you're using pastel matte, you have some room for more layers. So go ahead and do that. So yeah, if you kind of lose that super distinct edge between each and every tree that you've created, you can start to see that it makes those trees not so hard to say, almost like stamped on, I guess. But you can see that there's the difference. So here, each individual tree kind of has like this path of like black line kind of going through it. And if we just kind of soften that edge of those trees so that the black kind of gradiates all over the place, it's not so distinct. The other thing is that these houses right here are very, very bright. And I think maybe if we just take a little bit of the gray color here and let's just make them not so bright. Just a tiny bit less bright. You can still see them really well, but they're in the distance, so you shouldn't see them too much. You have like this nice blurry effect here. I did not blur this area. This looks out of focus. And these trees and stuff, before I blurred them, they actually looked more in focus than this right here. And that's where you lose the continuity of your focal point. Because your focal point is up here where these rocks are. These rocks are really detailed and in focus. And it kind of brings the viewer's eyes straight down towards the water. Great job on the details down here, by the way. They look really good. And so by softening that stuff in the background brings the viewer's eye. Now, the other thing that I think could have been improved on a little bit is the change in the water values. So if we look at this blue, it pretty much stays the same all the way up here. Like it just stays the same. It's very uniform. And water just isn't like that, you know? You have more of this. See how you go from like this gray color, this grayish blue? If we take a little bit of this grayish blue and we tone down the intensity of the water in the back, and then we take this brighter blue and we bring it in up here. See how it changes the depth of the water? So you have this brighter, lighter, less intense blue, and then up here you get a little bit more intense, and maybe not that intense there, but let's bring in some of this blue a bit up here. And so you see that change. It's very subtle, but it brings the focal point up closer to the center where the darker colors are. Remember, when in landscapes, as you get farther and farther away, you get both less saturation and less value. Which is another thing with the trees and stuff in the background. If I were to take these trees, this whole background, let's just duplicate that. So this tool here, hue saturation, I'm literally gonna just take the saturation and go bloop. Just gonna drop it down. I don't want to do it to the sky though, so let me undo the part that's the sky. There. So here is with the lower saturation in the trees, and here's the difference. So here's the high intensity, like full saturation, no saturation difference. If we tone down the saturation, just look at the way it brings your eyes up towards the front. And it pushes those trees and it pushes those houses and hills further into the background. So it helps intensify the depth, right? So here's the original, and here's just a little bit of gray added to the greens and yellows in the back. And you can also take this front part. So if I take this front part here And since this is the focal point, I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to add some vibrancy. So I'm going to slightly increase the vibrancy saturation of the foreground. Am I in the wrong layer? No. Why is it not changing anything? Hold on a second, what did I do? Wait, what did I do? Why is it doing that? Where's the original picture? This is the original picture, right? Yes. Why is it doing this? It's being weird. I'm trying to duplicate this foreground. But it cuts it. Why is it doing that? Okay, whatever. We'll skip that. Then maybe I can just add the vibrancy to the whole thing. See if that works. Oh. What is going on? I think my computer broke. Am I still live? Why is it doing this? Okay, we're just gonna skip that. Anyways, you get the idea. The subtle change in vibrancy from the background to the foreground. Either way, it's really beautiful landscape. So those are just some small things that I think you could have changed. All right, going on to this pastel project, also from Sherry. And this one, imagine it's your daughter, very adorable, cute pose and outfit and everything. There's not a whole lot really to talk about with this one. You maintained the sort of perspective of the wall, but you changed the wall in the artwork. I'm not sure why, but this part of the wall does not match this part of the wall, and it changes like right here, which is, I don't know, maybe it's the photo. Maybe it's the photo. I don't know if it's the photo, but either way, I think the wall has way too much color. I like the wall grayer. The reason is because this intense blue here, I swear if I use the word intense one more time, this level of saturation, remember there's three types of contrast. There's contrast in value, there's contrast in in texture, and then there's also contrast in color saturation. So the saturation level in the portrait should be where you kind of focus your colors. So yeah, that's where your colors are most important, is the main subject where the viewer's looking. In the saturation level of this blue is pretty much the same as the saturation level of this blue, of what you changed the dress into, because the dress looks black here, but you made it blue, which, you know, I think that works. I think changing it blue is probably a good idea. Black doesn't translate well as flat black, because this is about as flat black as it gets in a photo. So making the adjustment to blue is really good, but you can see the saturation level of these two colors is pretty much identical. This one's since it's not as dark, it is definitely more gray, but still I just feel like it's too bright for the subject, and I think just gray, or maybe this color but less saturated. So maybe like that. Maybe like that. That's a bit closer to the gray, and it doesn't compete as much with the subject. And then also, so you maintain this line here, and this is like the wall. And this is super nitpicky, but I just want to point it out to you because there's these things in artwork called tangents. And tangents are, to describe them a bit, or to give you an example. So a tangent, if you look at a curve, if you put a point on, oh, wow, that looks really bad. If you put a point on a curve, let's cover that up real quick. So if you put a point on a curve, I can't make this line hit that there. The point where this line touches the point on the curve, this is called a tangent line. Another example is a flat line in the intersection where the intersection is 90 degrees. This is called a tangent. In artwork, you want to avoid tangents, okay? And you have this dress, you have this point, right? And right at that point is where this line comes out. It's just things that you want to avoid, and sometimes it's hard when you're drawing something and to avoid tangents. But tangents are very awkward. They just don't work well translating into art, even though in the photo here you get a tangent. You want to try to remove those when you do it in artwork. That's a very small nitpicky thing. The other thing is that I don't know how you did the texture of the dress, but I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this dress here is a black cloth that has like the silver shiny rhinestone thingy-mabobs on it. I don't know what that's called, but I'm guessing the cloth is black and the silver circular thingies are on top of the black cloth. And if you think about making that dress, you start with the black cloth and then you put the white little shiny things on top of it. But replicating that as a drawing, you might think, okay, well, let me start with this black dress or this blue dress and then put these, rhinestones on top of it. That I don't think you want to do in the approach of creating that illusion. I think what would have been a better option, let me take the blue that you used here. So you have some of these shapes. Remember when I'm breaking down hair and when I break down a lot of things, I'm always talking about those dark shapes. So find the dark shapes first. So we have this dark shape, and then we have this dark shape kind of here-ish. We have a dark shape here, we have a dark shape here. There's a few dark shapes like right in this area, over here, a little bit larger. And then the shapes start to get smaller, right? Once you have the large ones in, you can focus on the smaller ones. And as we fill in these shapes, what we're doing is we're working around the dots now. So now you start working around the dots, and then you're left with something that looks a bit shinier. Because the problem with your dress here is it just looks gray. It looks like a gray skirt or a gray dress instead of blue. And it's because it looks like you just did a base layer with this shape and then put the dots on top, but there's not enough dots. And I think if you would have focused on these shapes here, let me get a color, so that these little shapes, see these shapes here? These black shapes that are in between the dots. If you focus on those shapes, you're going to get something that resembles the dress a lot better. All these little shapes here. Like I said, focus on the big ones first, like this one here. Look how big that shape is. All that. And then there's like one dot right there. this shape back here, this shape. So remember, focus on the shapes, the broad stuff, the big stuff, and then take your time on the small stuff. Anyways, that's about it for that. You did a good job. The face is good. I think that you did good on that. The hair is good. Yeah, not a lot to improve. Maybe a bit of the shadows off here, tiny bit on the chin, right there. This is a bit darker right there. Also the forehead here. But yeah, pretty close. Good job. Oh, let's do the before and after. So here's the before, here's the after. The background. Tone the background down next time. All right. Moving on to your portrait here. I need water. Oh man. Yeah, the sparkles, the sequence sparkles can be tough. Can you still submit work? No, not right now. I had the submission up, or the submission thing link up for a couple weeks now. Just join the Unmask Family Facebook page and I'll do another critique possibly next month. If not next month, then the following month. First Friday of next month possibly. It might be a monthly thing that I do from now on. That way I don't have 41 submissions to go through. I think that's what I had, 41. Or something along those lines. I didn't count. A lot. All right, so Cherry, your portrait here. Excuse me. You did really, really good on the sweater. I think I might even like your sweater more than mine. I think possibly you could have went darker on this side. A little bit darker overall on this side. Because this side was really dark, remember? But overall, it looks really good. I like the texture here. The texture is good. Again, the same thing with this one. Like when I described to Diane's. Remember, these are little squishy yarn balls. They're soft. So that edge, again, that edge circle shape, you want to kind of soften that a little bit, which inevitably darkens the color of the yarn. The background, again, it looks like you went for the stylistic background that I went, where it's like really color pencil-like, but same thing with your background as I described in Diane's, is you have this edge. See how this edge kind of stops abruptly? Like here, it's solid black, and then it just like, it doesn't quite fade into the scribbles, and then it kind of abruptly stops here. Like it's like, I'm just gonna go scribbles. And then over here, it kind of stops like here and here. So it lacks that continuity. Subtle thing, but subtlety is what it's all about. And then also, this black looks darker than here. This could be from the photo, but again, you want to make sure that the values, the darkest values, are used in the subject. So this could probably use another layer of black to really darken it. Right? There we go. And the brightness of the hair, this should be a little bit darker here. You could, it's hard for me to tell. I think you used solvent. If you didn't use solvent, let me know. But you could probably blend out the hair with some more solvent, because if you soften the hair, a little bit, by blending it, I think it's going to look a bit smoother. Remember, the hair is not in focus. Only like a few of these strands here are in focus. So here's before, here's after, just that softness. Good job on the face. Couple spots that you can maybe work on. So first off, this shadow should come up a little bit higher. Come up a little bit higher with the dark color. Also here, beside the eye, right here, that's a little bit darker. Same thing here. Same thing with the little crease under the eye. It's a tiny bit darker right in this area. You can definitely go darker under the nose. All this should be darker. There we go, something like that. And then this crease over here, make sure you go all the way out. There we go. And underneath here, underneath the lip, that can be darker. But other than that, you have the nice peach color for the skin. You can use that peach color on this part of the cheek over here. It's a little bit too bright. Also this upper chest area here, a bit too bright. But other than that, yeah, it looks good. Looks good. You did a fantastic job. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was your first colored pencil portrait, wasn't it? I used cartridge paper. Oh, okay. Yeah, so a bit smoother. It's going to be hard to add more layers, but you should be able to get smoother blends with solvent. Just use very, very small amount of solvent, you know. You don't want to wipe off the pigment. But yeah, those are some things that you can make small adjustments to. But other than that, you did a really, really good job on the portrait. Captured the light. You went bold. You went dark in the shadows. Good job. And I hope that you're pleased with this. Yeah, I hope that you're pleased with this portrait, because not a lot of people could do this good on their first color pencil portrait. So everybody is sitting in your own house at your own computer, most likely by yourself. Give Cherry a round of applause for really doing super well on this portrait, for it being her first colored pencil portrait. All right, fantastic artwork. Thank you for the submissions. All right, up next is Joanne. So this is Joanne's version of that portrait, and this one I like this one a lot for different reasons than what I like some of the other portraits for. One thing, I am totally jealous of the scribble. Your background, it looks like, and I mean this in the most complimentary way I can, your background actually looks like a kid colored it. And I'm jealous of that, because that's what I wanted to portray. I wanted to portray that the background was kind of that kid scribbling, and you did really good on that. One thing that you did the best, and I think even better than mine, is that transition from scribble. So you have that transition from scribble into the colors as they get heavier and thicker, and then as it transitions up to the actual portrait itself, it's very consistent. Maybe not so much right here if I want to get nitpicky, but the transition is really good. I wish I would have thought of it, but I like the direction. So if you guys can see this, Joanne has these really nice directional lines, which, just a moment ago I was telling you not to do in backgrounds, but this one is an exception. So see the direction of her scribble? See that direction? That is genius. That is genius. The direction comes right into the face. So I love that. I love that. I didn't think of that when I was doing my background. That's where direction in the background can really create an impact, because what those lines do is it creates a burst. It creates a burst of excitement that that this portrait portrays. And then I don't know, Joanne, if this is your first colored pencil portrait or your 100th colored pencil portrait, but you did a really good job following the tutorial. I like you made a nice distinction for the chin here. You didn't quite go as dark as I'd like on the shadow on the skin. I think this shadow could have been maybe just a little, not like that, hold on, just a little bit darker. Maybe just a hint darker on that shadow. Up there a little bit more. So something, just a small amount, just a tiny change there, just a tiny change. That just helps reinforce that light. Again, the same problem that Diane had with her nose, you kind of have with yours, but you have it on the other side. This side is okay, but this side needs to come in just a tiny bit, just a small amount to get the bridge of the nose and the tip of the nose a little bit better. I'm just making small changes there. But yeah, the nose looks a little bit too rectangle. The bridge of the nose, just too much of a rectangle. Just kind of soften those edges tiny bit, and the nose looks great. The mouth looks really, really good. You have, and somehow you kind of made things look shinier than I did. The teeth here, just darken those just a tiny bit. Push those back into the mouth. They're a bit too white. They need to be a bit more gray-brown. And then, like I described, you want to be real careful with the gaps. So it looks like she'll be needing braces a little bit when she grows up, because this gap here is just a bit too wide. Just a bit too wide. There you go. So just a small dental work there. But other than that, very good. The sweater, overall the whole image kind of has that scribbly look to it, which I think works really well, even though it makes the sweater look rougher. And so it kind of works rough like that. But again, I think let's see here. Let's see if we can blend or blur out the sweater a bit. So I'm just gonna blur the image a bit. Let's see, how much sweater blur do I want? How soft do I want that sweater? Let's soften the sweater like this. So let's see if we soften the sweater like all the way. Yeah, I'm not sure I like it. I kind of like it rough for the way that you have it. Let me fiddle with the blur here and see if the softness can work. Maybe a little bit softer, but also I feel like it's missing a bit of red also. That is not red. I feel like there's too much white from the paper showing through, and so I think a couple more layers with some of the reds, especially the intenser reds, the brighter reds. Some shadow in here. Let's go brighter. So let's grab this red. Bit more saturated. Yeah, I don't know. Small things. Smoothing out the sweater at the very least, covering the paper a bit more, I think would be good, and then darkening this, darkening the teeth, and maybe trying to solve that big gap between these two teeth here. But you did a really, really good job. Thank you for the submission. All right, moving on. So this is another portrait that Joanne did. Let's see here. Brings in a great focal point on the face, that way you use the background. Yeah, the background's really great. So this is a watercolor and colored pencil portrait that Joanne did. I'm not sure when she did this, but the fact that she did this, she had to have done this one before she did this. So the fact that she can do a portrait that is not as stylized as something like this with the scribbles just tells me that she's really good at scribbling like a kid, because that genuinely looks scribbled like a kid, and I'm totally jealous of that. This one, wow, there is a lot of detail in the background, and sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes that can be a bad thing. In this case, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. The level of texture and the level of detail in the background does somewhat compete with the foreground subject, but you found a way to separate them so cleanly that it works quite well. I think that maybe instead of the textural contrast, so instead of just blurring the background, we can look at what the background would look like if we just blur it. So let me do that really quick. So I'll just blur the background, and if we no. So if we bring this back into focus here, this is one way of doing it, right? Is having the main subject in focus and having the background blurred. You see the way that really helps separate the subject from the background? So here's before, here's after. So that's what the difference that a subtle blur to the background makes. But backgrounds like that are easier said than done. Doing blurry backgrounds, all of you should probably know that doing blurry backgrounds like that is not a simple task. So having a textured background like this, I think what would be better, instead of trying to make the blurry background, if you want that detail and you want to do the contrast between the background and the main subject other than just blurring it like this, what you can do is you can use saturation contrast. So if we tone down the saturation, maybe not that much, tone down the saturation in the background, and there's the saturational contrast. Do you see how the intensity of like the red doesn't compete as much with the red in the background now? So here's the original, and here's toning down the saturation in the background. So instead of removing the texture and detail, all we've done is we've kind of pulled back on the intensity of color and toned down the saturation. So here's the difference. Here's the original. Here's a small pull in the saturation of the background. So here in the main focus, the portrait, that's where the highest saturated colors live. And in here, the saturation is competing between both the background and the foreground subject. So there's a few artistic choices you can make. You can go with blurry contrast. So that's one way to bring forth the subject, or saturational. But either way, I don't have anything other to add to this portrait because it's really, really good. You did a good job on that one. All right, next up is Jan, and Jan also did this portrait project. Man, there's so many of these portraits. It makes me very happy to see so many of you doing this project. It's really, really cool to see. On this one, so I don't see the edge of the paper, so I don't know if Jan, if you went all the way to the edge of the paper, or if there's a lot of paper space. Either way, you kind of have like this square shape, and I think maybe a clean border. So adding tape to the edge, if we make a clean border here, so I'll just artificially make a clean border for your portrait. So there's what it would look like with a clean border, as opposed to the subtle scribble, sort of uneven border. And I think this looks a bit better with a clean border. Since you went for that square shape, you might as well just go all the way and have nice clean edges to the artwork. Goodness. I don't even know where to critique here. You did a really, really good job. The bottom of the nose, maybe the value just a bit too bright, so you could darken that up a smidgen. Remember, the underneath the nose is quite dark in this project, like right in here. Remember, this is really dark here in the project. Again, the teeth here, they need to be a bit darker. They need to sink back into the mouth, remember. They're a shadow. See how dark I made those? And it pushes the teeth way far back. The teeth shape is slightly off. These two teeth, the two front teeth, they should be the same size, and this one on the left is just a bit smaller. The gap here on the bottom teeth, this gap right here, a bit too distinct. Remember, when we were working on this portrait, I said to be very, very careful with the gaps that you create in the teeth. This highlight on the lip, remember, lips are not perfect, so there should be a few breaks, little cracks in the lips. Lips aren't perfect, so a few little lines breaking up that highlight. You did really good on the hair. Just like on Cherry's portrait, I think if you were to just do a little, maybe one final soft blend with the solvent in the hair, if we just soften these hairs a little bit more so that the lines aren't as distinct, I think that's going to add that little touch of little touch of stuff. But goodness, there's the sweater, I think, is good. There's not much to say about that. You could possibly go darker on this side over here. So darker over here. But yeah, very, very small changes. Very small changes. Good job. Fantastic job. Thank you for submitting that. All right, we got two more people. Up next is Lisa. And again, this portrait. Lisa did a fantastic job here. A few things. So you did like this more arched background, like I did. Try to maintain a little bit of symmetry. So this measure this distance here compared to this distance here. You did the same thing that I did, actually. I had to make that adjustment on mine. On the final day, I had to kind of like bump this side out a little bit. But it's fine. It's fine. But watch. I can't tell where the edge is, but this kind of has like this thing going on here. You kind of have this edge, this edge in the shape. Careful with that edge. Let's see. As far as the skin goes, not sure what paper you're using. It looks quite textured. Yeah, the paper does look quite textured. You could possibly try to smooth out the skin a little bit more. I'm not sure. it looks uniform at the very least. So don't get hung up on that too much. You could probably try to go darker. Yeah, don't be afraid to go a little bit darker in the shadows on the face. So if I just darken this up just a tiny bit, there you can see the difference. Just a small change going darker there. Again, I think this side of the sweater, we're making too uniform. Everybody's doing this. It's too uniform. Remember that the light source is strong on the left side, so that whole right side of her sweater, it needs to be darker. And that's a common thing that I keep seeing. Good job on the teeth. This tooth here, her incisor, that's a big tooth right there. She must have lost that one first and had her adult tooth come in or something. That incisor, she looks half vampire. Just add some gum to the top. So this part of the gum, yeah, she's not a vampire, so let's just add a little bit of gum there, and let's just round that tooth off. That thing's gonna put an eye out. Yeah, let's just tone that tooth down a little bit. And I see you darken these teeth. Let's darken them a little bit more. There we go. Now these teeth are nice and bright and up forward. Good job on the tongue. Yeah, I like the transition from the dark into her tongue. Yeah, good job on that. Tongue looks nice, and the gradient is very nice and smooth. Other than that, I mean, small changes. You did a good job. Excellent job. I love seeing these portraits. Yeah, they're fantastic. You guys did so good. All right, next project. Lisa, oh man, I can't believe you did this in colored pencil, because this, for those of you that don't know, this is an older tutorial that I did, but in pastels. I did this project in pastels, and Lisa, you did this in colored pencil. This is, I think this might even beat, Diane's insanity to do the Northern Lights with colored pencils, because this one in colored pencil, I would never do. Though, and the first thing, I have to commend you with the water, the reflection and the texture and everything in the water. The top part of the water specifically is what I'm referring to. That water is not easy in any medium, and the fact that you did it in colored pencils sort of blows my mind a little bit. Now, where I think you could have improved the water, it's definitely down here in the bottom. One of the things that I remember talking about when doing this project, and I'm trying to remember even when I did. I think I did this in 2019, although I have no memory for that stuff. You have a lot of these directional lines, but I feel like they're a bit too obvious. I feel like they're just a bit too much. And if we blur them out, what is it doing? Is it thinking? Okay, there we go. So if we blur these lines out a bit, where we still see the direction, and I think this can be achieved by blending with solvent. So let's just isolate the water here and blur this part of the water so that it's softer, because again, going back to the textural contrast of the image, all of these lines are competing with the details of the mermaid, right? Same thing with the dolphins back there. They need to be invisible. So now the mermaid pops out a lot more, right? So here's before, here's after, and that I didn't change the values, I didn't change the color. All I did was change the texture, and by blurring that water more, you still get the light the direction of the light peering through the water, but now the mermaid is much more in focus. Speaking of the mermaid, you can use another layer of, that is not black, another layer of black, not that crazy, on the hair to darken up the hair a bit, because there's not a lot of light hitting your hair. You could even use, I don't know, maybe some reds or some blues, whatever color. That's real intense blue. Maybe a little bit of blue in the hair, however you want to do it. These lines here where you have the shadow, you can blur those out a little bit. You can gradiate them a bit more so that they're not so sharp. The lines don't end so abruptly. This is a hard project, so I commend you a lot for attempting this project. The dolphin here, so the dolphin is very, very gray. There's not a lot of color to it, and so remember when I was doing this, I talked about how the dolphin exists in the water and all the colors need to reflect that. So the dolphins are much bluer. The dolphins are blue just like the water. So it needs a little bit more blue into it. But other than that, I mean, it looks fantastic. I don't know what else to say. You could probably use some more intense colors of red. So you have this pink color here. If we intensify that a bit, just bring out a little bit extra pink, a little bit extra red. Kind of boosts the color, right? Kind of makes her look more colorful. Same thing with like the yellows and the greens and whatnot. Just kind of go in there with some really bright, super saturated colors and really make those pop. Grab a blue here, go real intense with the saturation, a little bit extra blue in that part, and bam. Now it's nice and bright. So here's the changes. So first off, getting rid of the texture in the water, in the bottom part of the water, not the top part, really helps bring the mermaid forward, focuses your eye a bit better. And then just small changes to the colors of the dolphin, a little bit more value in the hair, softening some of the edges of the shadows on the skin, and then intensifying some of the bright colors in her fin. Oh my goodness gracious. Probably like 2 hours in so far, and I still have Susan to do. So this is a fantastic job, Lisa, on this project, and I'm gonna jump to Susan's project. She has 3 of them submitted. Oh, Claire. You go by Jan and Claire. Wow, I think you mentioned that before. Okay, Claire. So Jan is Claire. Did I already do other projects from you, Claire? Is that it? I didn't have Claire and Jan. Okay, wait. Oh, that was okay. Okay, I'm caught up. Sorry about that. Let's see. Let's see. Yes, so Ela, Diane's right. Art club members can submit multiple projects, but if you're not in the art club, you can only submit one. You're welcome, Teresa. I'm glad you learned a lot so far. I still got 3 pictures to go through. Glad you guys are enjoying this. Oh, okay, Claire. So Claire is Jan. Jan is Claire. This project here. So this is Claire in chat there. And I have it listed as Jan because I guess Jan is short for Claire. All right, so Susan. Susan submitted 3 projects from the art club. This is a cat that we did, a cat project, cat portrait that we did. First thing, love the background. I love the colors that you used, and I love the way you blended the background. I actually like it a lot more like this than the way that I did the background on mine. It's nice and soft, the colors, they're incorporated. I think I even see some green in there, which doesn't even exist in the reference photo, but I like the added touch of green. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, but for some reason it works really well in the background. Some things that I think you could improve on for this project is, first of all, getting this transition for the cat into the background. So if we kind of feather this out a little bit and kind of erase a little bit of the cat so that it fades more and it doesn't have this kind of sort of awkward jagged edge. If we just kind of fade these colors in there a bit, sort of like this. Now that edge doesn't feel as strange. It almost looks like I don't know, like a skirt or something. Having it fade into the background, I think, makes that edge look less strange. Really nice job on the eyes. I think to make the eyes more spherical, you do have the dark color on the tops. You have like the nice shadow on the top of the eye, but you don't have it so much on the bottom. Remember, it's also on the bottom, and that's what helps create that spherical shape, is that shadow is also on the bottom of the eye. See, here's the difference in the eyes. See that? Very subtle, but big difference. Now, the other thing with your project that you did is that you have, so for the texture of the fur, you have it the same everywhere. The texture on the forehead is the same as the texture on the chest, the cheeks, the ears, everything. And if you remember with this project, this ear in particular is not quite in focus. So if we take this side of the face over here and we just kind of, let's tone down the texture there a bit. And then also along the side of the face a little bit. And then we want to bring attention to the eyes and the nose, right? That's the main focal point of the cat. So we don't want all this texture down here on the chest. We want it to look like fur, but we don't want it to be as intense. We don't want it to be so clear. Same thing with this ear. We can kind of tone down the texture there. And so here's the difference. See how it kind of starts to bring your eyes in? It's very small change, but it starts to bring your eyes to the cat's eyes as we lose some of that texture. There we go. And then also, don't forget that white fur is never actually white. So what you're missing is you're missing some of the fun colors. I see no purple. I see no purple here. Susan, where's your purple? I demand more purple from all of you. If there's one thing you better learn today, don't submit projects without purple. That's a bit too extreme. That's too much purple, even for me. I'm just gonna go like this, and let's draw back that purple a bit. Yeah, a little bit of purple, but it also needs some of the browns, right? So we need some brown colors. Not even sure where to grab them. Let's just grab this brown. And remember, this part of the cat over here is more shaded. Bam, like that. A little bit over there, a little bit of brown up there. Brown on the nose. There was brown on the nose, right? I'm trying to remember this project, but there's definitely some brown here. It's not white. You can even throw in a little bit of blue into the fur. You know, a touch of blue here and there. A little bit of blue up in the ears. And that's just a little splash of color. Yes, indeed, purple is where it's at. Oh, hey, Susan. Okay, you're in chat. Good, good, good. Yeah, don't forget the purple next time. All right. But good job on the cat. So here's the changes. You know, just softening a few areas, blending them out a bit more so that the texture is less obvious, and then just, you know, splashing in some fun colors. Don't forget to splash in some fun, especially purple. Let's see here. So this is Susan's portrait of the girl, and I don't know how you managed to do this, Susan, but this looks like a painting. This hardly looks like colored pencil. It looks like a painting. The colors are so thick and smooth. I'm actually kind of jealous. Especially like this area here, like this all looks like painted, and then all of this looks like it's painted. I'd say the only thing that looks like colored pencil is like the scribbles you added up here. The scribbles. And then this looks like colored pencil, the hair looks like colored pencil, but this looks painted, and the face almost looks painted. And you did a really good job on this portrait. The background, I like the greenish. You have a more green background than anybody else, including myself. And I think that works really well against the red in the sweater. But you have much more of a painterly look to this project, and it works really, really well. I think I can't remember who it was that was having some difficulty with the hair, but I think you mentioned that you were having some difficulty with the hair. I think you did good on the hair. I don't think there's anything wrong with the hair at all. You could probably bring in a little bit more of this orange brown. I can't remember what that brown was called, or what the number of it was. But if you had a little bit more of that orange brown just throughout some of these parts of the hair, I think maybe that would help. Give it that golden red color. Maybe just a little bit more saturation here and there. Yeah, just a little bit more of that orange color coming into the hair, giving it the red tone. Yeah, the styles, all those different styles from the same portrait is awesome to see. And we all create something a little bit differently, which I love. I also love to see. Let's see here. So with the background, so there's just one thing with the background. See this edge? You kind of skipped. A little bit over here and over here. You broke the illusion that it was painted with the edges on the sleeve. I think you're the only one that I feel like actually went as dark as you should have. But even then, I think you could have went darker on, especially this part here. Maybe just a little bit darker. But you did good on this side of the sweater. So I'm not gonna ding you there. You're good. On the skin here, where I think you can improve a little bit, is those transitions. Remember when we started the skin, it was all about the drawing in the shapes with the color, and we had no separation. So all of there was no transitions that existed when we first started on the skin for this project. And I think you left that too extreme. So if we just soften this edge right here, just look at the way it softens her cheek. See the way it kind of softens her cheek. It's you can do that on the forehead as well. You can soften some of those edges where those colors fade into one another, and you're just going to make her skin look softer. Same thing with a little bit of this shadow here on the nose. Just kind of make that gradient a bit softer. And then let's talk about the teeth, because she needs some dental work. I warned everybody for this project that teeth are really hard, which is why so many people don't want to do open mouth smile portraits, because teeth are a nightmare. And if you get them wrong, it's not good. Let's see here. Let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna copy this tooth because I think this tooth looks good. This tooth looks good. So let's copy that. We're gonna flip that horizontally so we get something symmetrical. So something like down a little bit. Yeah, maybe something like that. And then we have these teeth. They're dark enough, but they're not big enough. It should come down a little bit like that. Same thing with this tooth. The gap in between them shouldn't be so obvious. Yeah, the gaps in between the teeth are a bit tough to do. That's a little bit better. Her two front teeth match now. So yeah, I know it's tough. I don't know how many portraits you've done, and you've probably not. Also, first portrait. So don't take it personally, please. You did an amazing job, and the portrait came out really good. Teeth are a nightmare. I warned you guys when we were doing this project that they're very, very dangerous to do because they're super hard. And just one tiny little mistake makes all the difference on whether or not the teeth look good. So see how this is that one tooth that I copied. See how different? It's almost like 1 pixel difference, and it makes the teeth much more symmetrical and natural looking. But yeah, it's a great portrait. It's a great portrait. You can again maybe smooth out the sweater just a little bit, but other than that, fantastic job. Oh, we're on the final project. We're on the final one. Another one by Susan. So this is another art club project. This was Butters the squirrel and Toast the chipmunk. And there's a lot of things that I love about this project. Susan, I love this project. Remember when I was describing, it might have been earlier this week or last week when I was talking about how when you compare your artwork to other people's artwork, that you always put somebody else's artwork on a pedestal, and you always do this comparison where you look at your artwork in a negative way, whereas when you're looking at other people's artwork, you're always looking at it in a positive way. And it's because the imperfections is what makes artwork perfect, and the style that you have is a natural style. The way your hands move is always going to be different than the way my hands move, and so different doesn't mean better or worse in any way. And let me grab my picture here so that we can do a comparison between my squirrel and chipmunk and your squirrel and chipmunk, not for any other reason than I want to express the uniqueness of your style. Did I not post this picture? Okay, there it is. So here's mine. I'm gonna try to get them about right. So here's my Butters and Toast squirrel, and here's yours. And what I love about yours is that your squirrel and your chipmunk have so much personality to him. I remember when we were making the tail, when we were doing the tail here, and I was talking about the technique of making the tail look wiry. I am totally jealous of how much better your squirrel tail looks than mine. I absolutely love the way that your tail looks in comparison to mine here. My squirrel looks groomed. My squirrel looks like he's been brushed. He's too groomed, and I love the character of your squirrel. You took the wiry look of the tail and you dialed it up to like 12, because the wiriness and the hairs on your tail are so much more there's so much more character to it. So you did like just the perfect tail. I just can't even I can't imagine a better looking tail than that. Now, as far as the squirrel itself goes, it's still really good because you maintain that super wiry look. Like, he looks like he's having a really rough week. He hasn't bathed in a while. He hasn't even touched water in who knows how long. He looks like he's itching for water right now because he needs a bath. And I just love that. I love that type of character comes across in your squirrel and chipmunk. They just have a character to them, and it doesn't need to look like this. They don't need to look clean and pretty to be good. I think what you've done here is you gave them a different personality altogether. Now, where I think that you can improve on both, and I'm kind of combining them because they both have a similar characteristic to them. Where really the only thing that I think needs some improvement is if I let's take those background color here. The color of his underbelly here, a bit too clean, ironically. This color needs to be just a bit darker so that it looks more shaded, because right now the squirrel body, it doesn't quite have that sensation of light that we are trying to create here. Even mine is very, very subtle. You have like the kind of the shadow underneath the nose, a little bit of shadow underneath the chest and here, a little bit of shadow underneath the legs. Whereas yours, if we take just a bit of the dark color and kind of put it in here a little bit. Now there's a bit more of a shadow there. There's not a lot of shadow throughout this project, but just a small amount goes a long way oftentimes. And so just a tiny bit darker in a few of those select areas, and I think that you have it really good. The other thing that I noticed, I don't know if this was intentional, but it looks like you drew the shoulder. And that's not where the shoulder would be at, first off, anatomy speaking wise. It's back here. I'm not sure what that line is. But it goes against the grain of the hair, so it sticks out a little bit. You also added like this white highlight right here, kind of making the arm really thin looking. But again, if you look, that's not where the arm is. So when you make those changes in the fur, where you add highlights and shadows, remember when I was describing anatomy, you change the anatomy of the squirrel. You change the anatomy when you change where the highlights and shadows go. And so this is where the highlight is, and because that's where the arm is and the shoulder comes up here. This bump here is the scapula, the shoulder bone. And so the arm comes like this, and then like this. And then on yours, the arm it's much shorter, and the shoulder's like hunched forward, like like that. And that's not the way the shoulder is of a squirrel. So that line there and then this highlight here, if we just shift those maybe, I don't know if I can shift them, I'll try. So if I can, no, wrong layer. Let me just turn that a little bit. Let's bring it back to a more natural squirrel arm. So kind of like that, right? So that shift kind of makes the arm, look huge there, but hopefully you get what I'm saying there. That it changes the anatomy of the squirrel a little bit. Not so much with the chipmunk. The chipmunk's fine, but I'd say that some of these bright areas where you added white, just a bit too bright. Remember the back side here is really dark for the shadow, but other than that, I mean, awesome job. What a fantastic picture to finish the stream on. But when I saw this, I was like, I was just sitting here staring at it for a long time because you just have so much texture. I love this grass that you added over top of the tree, and I like that you made it thinner. Like mine's just meh. Mine's just meh. It's not even interesting to me. I don't even find mine interesting at all. I find yours so much more interesting. I love this little grass here. This is perfection. I love this. I love it. So good. One other picture that I want to share, since we looked at everybody's portrait, let me critique my own portrait. Where do I have my portrait at? So here's mine. So here's my smiling girl portrait. Again, my transition from the scribbles, this is too abrupt. I definitely feel like, who was it that did? I'm trying to think of who did the, not that one. Who did? No. Who was it? Was it Jan? No. Who did the really good transition? Ah, yes, Joanne. I wish I could trade Joanne's background, because I don't like my transition nearly as much, and I love that with Joanne's the direction, that direction that increases the intensity. I wish I would have done that. That's something that I really wish that I would have done. I think I captured the values quite well. The softness of the hair and the changing in the texture of the hair a little bit is good. I think I kind of messed up the nose a tiny bit. I feel like maybe I could have also fixed the bridge a bit. I feel like the bridge is just a little bit too wide. So maybe just fixing the bridge of the nose a tiny bit. I don't know. It's hard to critique your own work, but my button is not very round. I think I messed up the shape of the button a little bit. It looks kind of mushed a bit. But yeah, there's a comparison with my portrait. But still, there's still room for me to improve anyway. But honestly, all of you did a fantastic job. That is the last project that we're going to do a critique on. So thank you so much. I'm looking at this way because I have chat over there. But yes, thank you so much for submitting everything. I hope that you enjoyed this extra long live stream and you learned something from it. And I look forward to seeing the improvements that you make in future projects. Like I said, I'm thinking about doing this the first Friday of every month. So if you want to submit a piece for the critique session, make sure you join the Unmask Family Facebook page. And even better than joining that is to also join the Unmask Art Club on my website. I have a link for that in the description. I do 4 live tutorials every week. We do colored pencil projects and pastel projects. We just started a new mini series that is focusing on learning and developing the fundamentals of color theory and mixing colored pencils. And we're doing that with just the 12-pack of polychromos, so it's a really fun series so far. And we just finished up an avocado project yesterday. And then next week for the pastel project, we're starting a new pastel project. So next week is a new pastel project and a new colored pencil project. So today and this weekend would be the perfect time to sign up because we're starting new projects. And a lot of the people that you see in chat today, they are art club members, and I think that they enjoy the art club and they have fun and learn a lot from there. And one of the things that I'll most likely be adding relatively soon to the art club is a Discord channel where when I live stream the live tutorials, you can join the Discord channel and actually talk to me instead of typing. So I'll be adding that soon. And yeah, with that's going to be it for me today. So again, hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you all on Monday for the art club project. For everyone else, make sure you join. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday and your weekend. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.